Hi guys, BuildZoid here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a very stable memory overclock. And I'm not like being sarcastic about that. That's actually very it is a this is the stability level I test my daily system to, and that's the system currently recording this video. Though admittedly, people who have been on the AHOC live streams are probably used to the damn thing crashing all the time, so that might not be that high. Well, to be fair, the last series of crashes was caused by a dodgy HDMI coupling. So it's not actually my memory, my memory stress testing standards that are at fault. It's my me buying really cheap crap cables. That's what it's at fault. Anyway, so yeah, the kit currently in the system is this stuff right here. This is by far the best B die I own. And it's honestly not fair because it's the cheapest B die I own, but it is just so much better than everything else that I have. So this is Patriot's Viper Steel 4400 megahertz CL19 1.45 volt memory kit. And yeah, and it's 16 gigs as you can clearly see up there, right? 2x8. It's A2 PCB layout B die. We have it here running on the MSI X570 Unify. Thank you to MSI for providing the motherboard. And it's running with a 3700X, and it just completed over 400% mem test at some, the thing is, if I pushed it any further, then the infinity fabric of my CPU was the problem, would be the problem. So, these are some, top B die memory settings right here. So, anyway, let's get out. Nope, damn it, the keyboard's connected. I'm actually stress testing, currently also running a mem test on Threadripper. I've gotten to the point where I can have two test benches running at the same time, but the keyboard and mouse are shared between them, so I just need to rearrange the USB cables. Also, I forgot to change the scenes. So here's, yeah, there's the mem test. It's, and as you can, well, actually, I'm not sure if you can see because it's zoomed out, but, right, mouse and keyboard not plugged in. Give me a sec. Somebody's probably like, BuildZoid, why don't you already, trash this take if, you forgot your USB cables? Well, it's because, I've been awake for way too long, so my quality standards are at an all-time low. Yeah, and I'm not about to wait for this to error out at 1000%. Though I kind of doubt it would. The thing is, come on. Yeah. There we go, got a mouse. There. That wasn't that big a delay. But yeah, this is stable to 400. Well, this is actually one of the shorter ones. There's some that are at 460% at this point. Each instance is 1200 megabytes, and there are 12 instances. So that is 14,400 megabytes of memory being tested. So basically, also the majority of the 16 gigs is being tested, right? If we look at how much available memory we don't have a lot because even freaking Task Manager is taking a while to load. So, yeah, I mean, I could push it for a little, we could maybe open up one more instance, but at that point the system starts being completely unusable. Anyway, so yeah, 400% pass, assuming, this is reflecting your thermal situation, which we're on an open air test bench. My personal system is an open air test bench. If you run your system inside a box and then have bad thermals on your memory, then it's your fault for putting your system in a box, right? PCs are meant to breathe. Don't put them in cages. And that's why I run an open air test bench. Anyway, Anyway, so yeah, so mem test is done. We're just gonna close all these instances, and then we're gonna do some quick oops. So, just gonna cover up the screen for a little bit because I forgot to set something up, and yeah, go. So. There, and now we can run some IDA. So, this is stable. This is very stable. This isn't, this isn't 1900 megahertz FCLK, so this is actually reflective of what a lot of CPUs can do, because 1900 megahertz FCLK is actually like, it's pretty rare that it's like 100% stable. Not impossible. There definitely are CPUs that can do it, but it's relatively rare. And this chip, like, I can do 1900 FCLK. It has a tendency to randomly shut down when I do that, though. So, yeah, but as you just saw, that was a 63.6 nanosecond IDA pass. And this is at 1866 FCLK. So, yeah, this is very, very fast. And then, of course, we are running 3733 because we are in 1-to-1 mode. Now, this is a 3700X, so the only test worth running is the read test, because trying to run copy or any... Well, copy doesn't really... It's not useful because the write test is Infinity Fabric limited, so the copy test just kind of spits out results that don't really make a ton of sense. Because there's very, like, because this chip only has a single CCD, the write test is entirely limited by the Infinity Fabric. And so the copy test actually, like, scores low because of that as well. So, yeah, but this thing is moving... What was it, like 56.7 thousand megabytes per second? Okay, so right now it's like 56,000 megabytes per second, which... there's actually a theoretical limit to how much bandwidth you can hit at any frequency, and that limit is basically, so each memory channel transfers 60, at most, can transfer 64 bits of data per clock cycle, well, per mega transfer, because actually when you know, this is DDR4 3733, that's not actually 3733 megahertz, that's 3733 mega transfers per second. Everybody calls it megahertz because everybody just can't be bothered to call it the proper terminology, me included. So, like, the actual frequency is 1866, but there's 2 transfers per clock cycle. So, anyway, so 3733 times 8, so that's 8 bytes per clock per mega transfer, right? Because it's 64 bits. So divide by 8 to get your number of bytes, and then times 2 for 2 memory channels, and we end up at like 59.7 thousand megabytes per second, right? Well, 59.7 thousand, yeah. So we are, like, the thing is, this doesn't actually... Like, we are very close to maxing out the theoretical limit of the memory channels. Like you can't actually achieve this number, because that would mean that there's no delay between, like, there's no free time between any memory access, which basically never happens. Like, that would be perfectly efficient memory, where every single clock cycle you are transferring the maximum amount of data. And yeah, and this is single rank. So for a single rank setup, this is actually, like, this is really good. For also considering the clock speeds. So now I could push it a little bit further, because it's not like I like to run, like, I don't run the most aggressive of secondary timings or tertiary timings, just because I don't like fiddling with, for like daily stable overclocks. It's just like, yeah, I could push another, you know, maybe like 0.2 nanoseconds, 0.3 nanoseconds more, maybe 0.5. But like, no, we're not going to do that. So anyway, here we are in the BIOS. I'm going to shrink the system down a bit. And also, it's worth noting I don't actually have the full heat spreaders on these sticks. So actually, I'm not sure how visible that is, but you can tell. I don't have the plastic vanity plate on top, because all that's left is the side panel. Like, well, we'll look at the memory sticks and you'll see what's going on with that. But anyway, so here we are in the BIOS. Yeah, 3733, 1-to-1, you know, 1866 FCLK. For the voltages, this is not safe for the CPU. I don't care. Like, this is literally, we're just testing memory. This chip sucks. It won't do 4.2 gigahertz properly stable at, like, relatively safe voltages. So this is the only way that I'm getting it to, because the problem is IDA's memory latency test is actually CPU frequency bound. So, like, 200 megahertz worth of core clock actually lowers your latency in IDA. Which basically, like, so if you're comparing your latency score against people who have higher clocked CPUs and your latency score is slightly worse, it's because their CPU is a higher clock, not necessarily because their memory is better set up. And it does make a pretty significant difference. So yeah, I'm trying to like run 4.2 gigahertz here on this chip that really shouldn't be doing it, because otherwise the latency would be a lot worse. Like if we were at 4 gigahertz, we'd probably be above 64 nanoseconds, like well above 64 nanoseconds at this point. Anyway, 1.2 volts SoC voltage, asynchronous VDDG voltages, so VDDG CCD at 1.05, because this one doesn't really help your Infinity Fabric at all. Whereas I/O die voltage is all the way at 1.15, which can help with stabilizing higher Infinity Fabric overclocks. Auto for the 1P8 voltage because, well, this can sometimes help with CPU overclock stability, but most of the time it does absolutely nothing, so there's no reason to adjust it. On LN2, it makes a huge difference, but at ambient doesn't do a damn thing a lot of the time. DRAM voltage, 1.5 volts. This is BDI. Why would you run it on less than, like, the only reason to run BDI on anything other than 1.5 volts is if you have cooling issues. This doesn't have cooling issues as it just passed 400% MEM test, so thermals are not a concern here, and that's even without the full heat spreaders on the sticks. So yeah, 1.5 volts, just mash that in there, right? Because BDI scales with voltage, so if you run less voltage, you get, you know, it clocks worse or times worse, or, well, both. It times worse and it clocks worse, so... or more like, it mostly just times worse, because you can always loosen out the timings to get the next frequency divider, right? But... at some point you run out of timing, so, and then you need to start cranking up the voltage proper. Anyway, so here's the timings. We are running gear down mode. Like, here's the thing is, gear down mode is not, like, you can get slightly better latency if you run 1T command rate proper instead of gear down mode. The thing is, the stability requirements to do 1T are much high. Like, doing 1T stable is much more difficult than just running gear down mode. And, like, I just don't care for the benefits it carries. So, like, the improvement in terms of performance is so minor that it's just like, I'll just run gear down mode. I'm too lazy to deal with stabilizing 1T. TRC 43, which is just a case of TRP plus TRAS. And yeah, the primaries are 14, 15, 13, 30, which is just like TRP tends to, like, with beat, well, I'd expect these sticks to do 14, 14, 13, but the problem is the memory, I'm pretty sure the memory controller doesn't want to do 14 TRCD, and I'm basing that off of the fact that these sticks actually do, like, 4400 megahertz, 17, 17, 17, if the CPU you're running them with has a good enough memory controller, and that's for, like, Intel. But yeah, with this chip, it's like TRCD 15. And it might be like a stick limit, but I really think it's a memory controller thing, because the TRCD should be able to match the TCL on these most of the time. Anyway, TRP 13, so, you know, that's a bit lower. And I've not actually tried minimizing it. Like, it might even do 12, but it's just like 1 or 2 ticks of any one timing at this point. Just kind of doesn't make that much of a difference. TRAS 30, which... well, that's basically just... The thing is, if you can lower your TRC, you get more performance. So I'm running the TRAS a little bit low just to try get the TRC lower. TRFC 280, this is actually pretty loose. Normally I go... Well, the thing is, sometimes I'll go for 300, but basically 300 on BDI plus minus 20 works from, like, 3200... Well, it works from, like, 2130... Well... There's no lower limit for the frequency at which 300 TRFC works. And it'll work all the way up to like 4800 megahertz as well. So this is probably unnecessarily loose, but knocking it down to maybe, I don't know, 240 just doesn't really seem worth it to me. So, you know, it would lead to a slight performance improvement, but then, like, I know for a fact that, like, this set of timings right here of, like, 300... 12, 4, 8, 4, 4, 10, 16, 12. I know this is basically stable always. So I like to run these timings just because it's like, I don't need to test them if they're stable, because if you have halfway decent BDI, this will probably work. So these don't tend to give me random mem test errors, and so it's just like, they might not be perfectly optimal, but they're already really fast, right? Like, they are already really fast. So, yeah, and then for the turnaround timings, just 4, 4, and 10. Yeah. So, which I think 10 is actually what it defaults to anyway, so... Might even be 9. And then power down enable is disabled because that's like that can cause some issues with like stability on waking up from sleep and that kind of thing. So yeah. And DDR4 really doesn't pull that. Like this is mainly a power saving setting meant for like laptops, and it's just like this is a desktop. It's not going to run out of battery anytime soon, mostly because it doesn't have one, unless you count the BIOS battery, which doesn't run the RAM anyway. Proc ODT, all of this stuff just auto. The motherboard does a perfectly good job of setting these on its own, which makes me very happy because it means I have to do less work. So, actually, I'm not sure if the motherboard's even adjusting them, because the thing is, a lot of these will be auto, like the same auto values across all motherboards. But, well, sometimes if you just have a very, very strong, well, a combination of a strong motherboard with strong memory and a strong memory controller means you can just run the auto settings and they just work. Right, so, yeah, there's not really much to this other than, like, yeah, this memory kit is just ridiculously good. Right, like, I'm not fiddling with any settings, it's just like, yeah, I punched in a bunch of timings that I've used 1,000 times before, and they work. And then the primaries are lower than, like, I don't have a single kit that can go this low on the primaries. So, yeah, on the primaries, this absolutely blows everything else I have out of the water. And actually, I wonder if it'll do well, no, let's try it. Like, we may as well, right? I need to pad out the oh, wait, the video's already 16 minutes. That's 16 minutes? That did not feel like 16 minutes. I have a really skewed perception of time. Anyway, we'll try 200, because funny thing is, I actually bench these at, like, 2 volts, 4,000 plus megahertz and 200 TRFC, and it benches fine. But the thing is that that's at 2 volts, so, and the extra voltage does help with the TRFC timing a bit. So we're not going to whack 2 volts into it right now because that's not useful for day-to-day usage. But I'm just wondering if it'll even post. And actually, I should blow this up so you can see the post codes, and that's no. That's a big nope. Okay, so yeah, it does need the extra voltage. So like a 2, yeah, that's not going to post. Anyway, that gives me a great opportunity to actually show you the memory sticks, because these aren't your completely bog standard A2, and I just realized that, oh no, I do have a stick of bog standard A2 relatively nearby. Let me just pull it out of the board. Oh, please be bog standard A2. Yeah, that's bog standard A2. So, anyway, we'll power this down, and we'll take a look at the PCB on these. Now, it is an A2 PCB layout, so let's get one of these lovely sticks out. Up. So, yeah, here's the heat spreader situation. I pulled off the heat spreader on one side of the stick, and we are going to zoom in a bit. There we go. So, yeah, I just need to hold it in front of the heatsink. So, yeah, I pulled the heat spreader. The back is obviously, like, I don't know how many people have actually tried pulling memory sticks apart, but basically, the back side of the stick, there's nothing here. Like, on a single-sided stick like this, there's nothing on the back. So you only have memory chips on this side, and this heat spreader right here is actually just like, there's basically like a double-sided foam. Well, it's not thermally attached at all. In fact, this heat spreader right now is cooler than the PCB. Like, just touching this PCB, the PCB is warmer than the heat spreader. And the reasoning for that is very, very simple. What's attaching this, like, what attaches the back heat spreader is, it's basically foam with some glue on it. So it's actually kind of thermally insulating on the back of the PCB. The front side, like, the memory chips on this side are actually attached with thermal tape, so the heat from the ICs does go into the heat spreader, but it, like, the one thing I will complain about with the Patriot Vipers, but the thing is, these are so damn cheap for what they are that it's just like, do I actually care that the heat spreaders are like the cheapest little thin piece of aluminum, you know, that I've ever seen? Not really, no, because they still time better than everything else in my collection, right? Like, and that just goes to show it's not really that much about, like, the bling around the memory chips. It's about the memory chips. And also somewhat the PCB. So this is an A2 style layout where you have, you know, one group of memory chips here, one group of memory chips over there, instead of having something like, well, an A1 PCB would have a extra chip mount right here. And then you'd have a, well, so A1 would have an ECC chip mount over here, but that wouldn't be used. And then there's the A0 layout where you'd actually have memory chips evenly spaced across the entire DIMM. But yeah, an A2 basically is the newer PCB layout, and it's generally known for clocking better than A0 does. It also has a reputation for doing worse timing than A0, but this is by far the best memory I have. And the only A0 memory kit I have actually really sucks next to these. Like, compared to these, the only A0 kit I have is actually kind of pathetic. Anyway, this is not a standard A2 though. There's a bunch of extra capacitors on that stick. This is a standard A2, and the difference is, I think, pretty obvious, right? Like, Patriot has added a lot of extra capacitors onto the DIMM. Yeah, and I'm not sure how much of an impact those actually have, but I do find the difference just kind of interesting, because a lot of A2 you will get is just, well, most A2 just looks like this. Yeah, they've added, like, capacitors up here, and of course down here. And I've not really noticed any major compatibility issues with what Patriot has done here. Like, I have other A2 based memory sticks that just, like, you stick them into certain motherboards and they absolutely bloody hate them. But these, like, this seems like they literally just took a standard A2 layout and then bolted on a bunch of extra capacitors and then didn't do anything else to it, because like, well, the Gene basically on the most recent BIOS has pretty good A2 compatibility, and these work amazing on it. And yeah, I've just not run into a motherboard yet with these that hates them. Whereas I have other sticks where if you just, you know, that are an A2 style layout and you plug them into certain motherboards and it's like, oh yeah, we won't, it just doesn't train above like 4100 megahertz or something. So it's kind of neat. Also, for the actual speed bin, so this is always funny to me with the various, like, if you're buying B-die memory kits that aren't directly from Samsung, is the memory chips on these are BCPB, and BCPB is the lowest speed bin that Samsung sells, and also lowest temperature grade. So, and I just find that kind of funny because, like, evidently Samsung's binning policy is just kind of awful if, you know, they're, like, because by Samsung's binning, like, binning labels, this is a binning reject. Like, this is the bottom of the barrel. And actually, funnily enough, this stick right here is also BCPB by the Samsung quality spec. But this one's terrible. Like, this stick right here is absolutely god-awful. It has nothing to do with the PCB. I have other sticks with the same PCB that are pretty good. This is trash. This is amazing. The ICs are exactly the same spec, but yeah. And the craziest part about these sticks though is that Patriot, like, in the UK, you can get these for a little over 100 quid, which is like that's ridiculous. Like, any other B-die, you'd be paying like 100. Like, most other B-die kits, you're just, like, starting price for other B-die is like 130. And then, you know, if you start looking at, like, the more, like, high-end bins, you're looking at, like, over 200 pounds very, very easily. And then there's these where, you know, you pay, like, they also have a lower speed bin, which I'm not sure if it uses the same PCB. They do have a 4000 CL19 bin. So this is 4400 CL19. I'm not sure if the PCB is the same. I wouldn't be... Like, the thing is, the PCB probably, once the PCB is designed, it doesn't really cost anything to just run a bunch of them. So I'd be surprised, like, well, I'd be somewhat surprised if there was like, a different PCB on the 4000 bin, but it's not impossible. And at the same time, like, the 4000 bin should be weaker, because this is Patriot's top bin for B-die. Like, they don't make a higher spec than this. And it's so damn cheap. Like, like, on it, like, next to this kit, everything, all the other B-die I have, it just feels overpriced. It's just like, because this costs like half of the net, well, yeah, pretty much close to half of what, like, the other kits I have per stick. And it's just like, that's ridiculous. Okay, well, not quite half, but it's like it's anywhere between like 75% and half of what the other kits I have cost. And this is the best stuff I have. Now, at the same time, there's going to be variance kit to kit, right? Like, not all of these kits are going to behave exactly like mine. I might have gotten exceptionally lucky, right? Mine might be, 1 in 1,000 of sold kits. But, yeah. Like, well, for now, this is just like the best damn B die I own. So it's just like it's really hard for me to say anything else when it's just absolutely wipes the floor with every other kit I have, by like a good 100 megahertz at any given set of timings. So yeah, you know. So I'm actually like I'm very very strong. Well, not even considering like if I get the chance, I'm buying another set. Like there's no way I'm not buying another set because I want to be able to like ideally if I get another set that's just as good as this first set, then it's like I'll have such a strong set of stakes for like X299 and well everything really, and then we can do like dual rank with potentially the exact same timings because the thing is the Ryzen memory controller is really pretty damn strong and it doesn't care that much about going from single rank to dual rank. So if I can get another set of these that times and clocks like this first set I have, yeah, we could probably do 37, 33, 14, 15, 13 at 30 like with 32 gigs of RAM. And that would be like and then we would probably fill up the gap between the current the current bandwidth versus the theoretical limit of the bandwidth. So yeah, I love these. I absolutely freaking love these. Like they're amazing. And actually I have one more video planned with these because yeah, they're just so damn good. So yeah, also if I get a second kit of these, I can run them on Threadripper, and it'll actually make sense because, I'll have 4 sticks for Threadripper instead, because running Threadripper with 2 sticks is just dumb. Like, you basically, like you're pretty much crippling the CPU. So, yeah. Anyway. Oh my god, this is like 27 minutes of me just going like, this RAM is the best. But, seriously, like, at the same time, don't just run out and buy these because, well, no. Here's the thing. Even if you get, like, a significant... Like, even if these were a tick or 2 weaker on every single timing. So, instead of, running 14, 15, 13, if these were running... let's say, well, with Ryzen, that would be 16, because as soon as you hit CL15, it's just like, well, if you don't want to, like, if you want to use gear down mode for the convenience, you're stuck on even cast latency. So, if you can't do 14, you might be stuck, like, if it went from being 14, 15, 13 to maybe 15, 15, 15 at 37, 33, you'd actually end up running, like, 16, 15, 15. Right? Which is fine. You can run 16, 15, 15. That doesn't cause any real issues, but your cast latency is 1 tick higher than it needs to be. Yeah, even then, it's just like that would still be pretty strong, right? Because that's actually where a lot of other BDI does stop, right? Is like 37, 33 CL16, even at relatively high voltages, can often be... Because a lot of kits don't quite make it to 14, right? Like that's the whole issue with like, and then it's like, okay, then you can go fight with getting the system to run 1T command rate, or maybe you'll just run 2T command rate and try to do CL15 that way. But it's just like, yeah, if you don't make it all the way down to CL14, you're kind of screwed, because if you don't want to turn off GDM, you're going to be at CL16. So, yeah, but so basically, if these were 2 ticks worse, this is still the cheapest B die. Like in the UK, this is still some of the cheapest B die. So it's just like, yeah. So you lose 2 ticks of primary timing, and your B die is still cheaper than every other available kit. Like, oh my god, it's like, it's just like these are so ridiculous. Like maybe I just got super ridiculous. Like I could have gotten like insanely lucky, right? I could just be super insanely lucky, but these like, because the thing is like, if you want comparable, like you can't, like a 4400 CL18 from like G Skill is like 300 pounds, or actually, I think it's more than that, right? That's like 3 times the cost of one of the, like, that's 3 times the cost of this kit. Like, you could literally buy 3 sets of these, bin them yourself, and, you know, it would still cost the same as, like, a 4400 bin from G-Skill. And it's just, like, yeah, unless, like, I don't know how consistent they are, but I wouldn't, like, if you went through 3 of them, I'd be surprised if you wouldn't find at least one that's pretty damn good. And you could always just run dual rank, and then it doesn't matter, right? Like, if you're running dual rank, the 2 ticks of timing is just like, got an extra rank to play with. That more than makes up for, you know, 2 ticks worth of cast latency or whatever. So, yeah. Like, that's all I have to say about these. These are insane. Like, these are absolutely insane. Please don't buy all of them in the UK. I do still need to get a second set. Okay? Just putting that out there. Don't buy all of them. I need to get a second set. After I get my second set, you can clear the shelves, but I don't want that happening before I get a second set. or like they'll end up super expensive or something, and well, I don't want that either. Okay? It's just like, I'm happy that I finally found a low end, like a cheap bin of B-die that doesn't suck. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So, yeah. And then, well, the Unify did a great job of running these, but at the same time, it could be just like, these are so ridiculously so ridiculously good that it doesn't really matter what board you use at that point. Yeah, I haven't done a RAM overclocking video with the Unify yet, so that's why I use this board. You know, because basically I've decided that, well, if I want to make use of all the random motherboards I have lying around, well, I guess we can just do RAM overclocking with lots of them, and that'll cover the whole doing stuff with said motherboards, you know, requirements. So, yeah, thank you to MSI for providing the motherboard, and I forgot to mention that I actually went and bought these. I didn't get these from Patriot. Like, I bought these. So, yeah, like these make it really hard to talk about the other kits in my collection. It's just like, oh yeah, there's this other kit I have where it's like, and it's like 100 megahertz slower at the same timings. It's just... Oh well. So thanks to the patrons for actually funding the purchase of these, because yeah, like, oh my god, like, my best memory kit. So thank you very much, patrons, for funding them. Thank you to MSI for the motherboard. Actually, thanks patrons for the 3700X as well, because yeah, I have to buy CPUs, and is that it? Right, so like, share, subscribe, leave comments, questions, suggestions down in the comment section below. And if you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking, as I did mention, I do have a Patreon. There's a link to it down in the description below. It helps out immensely because it allows me to buy stuff like the CPU and the memory kit. And then, what else was there? Right, there's the HOC Teespring store. There's shirts, there's stickers, there's posters. There's a new poster on there. So, yeah, if you'd like to support me by buying some, you know, AHOC merch, there's a link to the Teespring store down in the description below. And, yeah, that's it for the video. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.